This program is brought to you by cable franchise fees and generous donations from viewers like you.
Good evening and welcome to our first meeting back in the town room. Tonight we will conduct our meeting in a hybrid format. 4 counselors are remote, and when Counselor Schreiber joins us a little bit later, 9 of us will be in the town room. All town counselors will be participating via Zoom, even if you're in the town room, with some of us together here and yet others at remote locations. Seeing that we have a quorum of the council present, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:38. I will call upon those counselors who are remote to make sure that they can hear us and we can hear them. And I will also ask that you then make sure you mute your mic again. So let me first start with Darcy Dumont.
Here.
Alyssa Brewer.
Present.
Sarah Schwartz.
Present.
And Shalini Balmilne.
Present.
Thank you. If counselors who are remote wish to make a comment or ask a question, please click the raised hand feature on Zoom. If counselors who are in the town room and wish to make a comment, I ask that to the extent possible, you also click the raise hand function and featured in Zoom. You can physically raise your hand, but I'm going to be trying to run a meeting through a computer as well as visually. So I have therefore asked both Athena and our Vice President, Evan Ross, to help make sure I stay on top of it. Okay. If we have technical issues with counselors, we will discontinue the meeting and try to figure out what the problem is. The meeting includes audio, video, and is available live on Amherst Media as well as live in this room. It is also being recorded. There is no chat room. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, and we have several of you here today. Thank you for joining us. However, there is limited capacity in the town room and masks are required, not just of the people who are here as our guests, but also of all of us on the council. An option for remote attendance and participation is being provided via Zoom. However, with the exception of counselors, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. And let me just mention, if that should happen before public comment, then we do have to stop the meeting because public comment is required. In this new format, we will be inviting both public comment from those of you in the town room as well as on Zoom. With that, I ask your patience as we are inaugurating this new format for our town council meetings. Later in the evening, the council will decide whether we will continue meeting in this hybrid mode or return fully to Zoom based on the recent law signed by the governor. With that, we're going to move on to the announcements. They're shown on the screen. And the only thing I want to call out is that in the actual meeting notice, the original time posted for the Town Services and Outreach Committee was 7:30. It has been corrected on the announcements. It is in fact 6:30. Thank you. You can take that down. So let me talk about public comment so everybody understands how we're going to do this, and we'll do our best. Thank you for joining us. Again, I'm just going to ask for your patience. We will have public comment from both residents who are here as well as residents who are on Zoom. If you're in the town room, I will ask those people who wish to make public comment to raise their hands, not yet, but soon. If you are on Zoom, I will ask that you use the raise hand function. And make sure that if you are on Zoom and you're coming in by phone, you use *9. Once I determine how many people plan to make public comment, I will set the time limit. And then I will alternate by calling upon those who are in person and those who are commenting by Zoom. Please indicate if you would like to make public comment at this time by raising your hand either through Zoom or now. And on public comment here, I have at this point, I have 9, so we have over 20 public comments. Residents are welcome to express their views for up to 2 minutes.
Point of order.
Yes,
I'm so sorry to derail, but I just want to make sure the public's aware, since like you said, this is a complex meeting, that when you say public comment at this time, this is in fact the only public comment period tonight. So if people don't raise their hands and tell you that now, they don't get to change them a half an hour from now because there won't be another opportunity.
thank you. That is correct. This is the only public comment tonight. So the council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment. So I'm going to start with the people in this room, and I'm going to ask Alicia Walker. Absolutely.
My name is Alicia Walker. I am a resident of District 5. I work as an executive assistant at a law firm practicing criminal defense, housing law, and personal injury. I'm a mother to 3 young, brilliant, beautiful Black children, and I am the co-chair of the CSWG.
My name is Brianna Owen. I am a resident of District 1, and I am a program director at a local child advocacy agency working with youth aging out of foster care. I'm also the second co-chair of the Community Safety Working Group.
Tonight, we are here to speak on the budget presented by the town manager and to emphasize and remind you of some crucial things before your final vote.
The Community Safety Working Group had a 2-part charge, and we're going to address them one at a time. The first part of our charge was to make recommendations on alternative ways of providing public safety services to the community.
As a reminder, the CSWG was intentional with the recommendations and took a holistic approach to ensure that any public safety response in Amherst is anti-racist and equitable. We also wanted to offer preventative services that get at the root of assisting our residents to avoid necessitating public safety involvement in the first place.
As a result, the recommendations proposed include creating a community responder program, CREST, that can provide unarmed, non-police responses to non-violent calls, creating a resident oversight board, creating a well-staffed, well-funded Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and creating a BIPOC-led Youth Empowerment Center and BIPOC Cultural Center.
I know for many members of the community, the first part of our charge felt uncomfortable. For some community members, even maybe some here, traditional policing has worked, and it is hard to hear that a system that may have served you all did not serve the entire community in the same way. But that discomfort felt in these past few months while we were working to develop the CREST program has been discomfort the BIPOC community has felt for generations in this town, and they deserve better. The CSWG had a unique opportunity to engage marginalized community members who have been historically disenfranchised and others who don't typically participate in town government, as well as social service agencies and town officials as a part of this work, making our approach truly intersectional.
I want to highlight the call information Mr. Vernon Jones was able to share with all council members before this meeting via email. We only have a preliminary report from LEAP based on their initial examination of the APD call data and discussions they have had with Chief Livingstone and Captain Ting, but this information suggests that CREST can play quite a significant role and is worth the investment we are asking for. Investment is a reflection of our values.
Assuming that our CREST teams would be teams of 2 trained experts who respond together, 1 person with behavioral health experience and 1 with mediation experience, they identified call types that could be directed to CREST. These include assist citizens, noise complaints, disturbances, medical or mental assists, trespassing, and well-being checks. In 2019, pre-COVID, according to the data from the APD, there were 2,453 of these calls, or 30% of the total calls to the APD for service from the community. These calls would be screened to ensure 1, no presence of weapons or known presence of risk to violence, 2, no urgent medical needs, and 3, no crime needs to be reported or evidence need to be collected.
LEAP's preliminary estimate is that less than 10% of these calls would likely be screened out, leaving a total of approximately 2,207 or 27% of all calls to the APD for service as appropriate for CREST. The ability of the CREST program to respond to calls at this rate depends heavily on the number of responders funded, as well as the program being well-resourced.
$475,000 is not a sufficient commitment, and it is a method for failure typical of racist systems. It is vital that this program receive the same intentionality, value, and investment as services that have benefited white and privileged people in this community for so long. We will not accept this as a checkbox for the community engagement and a recommendation for a program that is set up for failure.
We've had the opportunity to meet with most of you one-on-one, and as a general consensus, you have expressed your appreciation and support of the CSWG's work and the CREST program. We are asking that you fully commit to that by rejecting the budget as proposed and requesting that a new budget be presented that truly affirms your commitment as town officials to the safety of all residents by directly investing in it. This is what anti-racism looks like, and I urge you to reflect it in the shadow of Juneteenth and ask, what precedent are we looking to set, and what side of history will you stand on?
We hope that as council members, you can commit to resources, staffing, and funding that is appropriate in order to respond to the calls that will be diverted to make this program truly successful. We would also like to address the second part of our charge at this time, which is to make recommendations on reforms to the current organizational and oversight structures of the Amherst Police Department.
We want to remind you how crucial it is the CSWG receive an extension on the second portion of our work, as our charge states, to review policies, complaints, and current training practices of the Amherst Police Department. All of the community is waiting to see what tangible change we can arrive at and how their lives and lives of their children will improve. Change is not just a written resolution, but an action. They are counting on us, and we won't let them down. They are counting on you. What will you do?
The CREST program will take months to train staff and get going, and in the meantime, critical changes at the Amherst Police Department need to happen to ensure the safety of all. We ask you as counselors to recommend an extension of work as action to the commitment you all made in December. We have seen this done countless times for other efforts in this town, and it is unfair and inequitable that we have had to jump through hoops and moving goalposts to make a meaningful impact in our own community. We are offering free labor and representation on the basis of love and respect for the BIPOC residents, and we are accountable to being pushed away and met with utter resistance.
In your resolution in December, you all wrote, "Be it further resolved that the Amherst Town Council hereby affirms its commitment to eradicating the effects of systemic racist practices of town government and town-affiliated organizations, and will review and revise its policies, procedures, bylaws, values, goals, and missions through an anti-racist lens to foster an unbiased and inclusive environment that is free of discrimination, harassment, and negative stereotyping toward any person or group. We believe an extension to look critically at the APD's policies, procedure, and training aligns with the commitment you all made last December.
Please help us move Amherst forward towards our dream destination. This work has been draining, triggering, and demanding beyond all costs, but we will not stop. We have an obligation to this work and to this community, and we are committed, and we are dedicated, and we are ready to fight for the Amherst that we all know that this can be. Thank you all.
Whoops. Thank you for your comments, and I'm sorry about the interruption of my alarm. Could we please put the clock up on the screen? As you can't. Okay. It was a little technicality we didn't check out before. Counselor Steinberg is going to keep tabs. I'm now going to move to somebody who has their hand up on Zoom, Christina, and I'm not even going to insult you by trying to pronounce your last name. Would you please enter the room, state your full name and where you live?
I never said that I was going to do any testimony. I never raised my hand or anything.
Okay. Christina, your hand was up, but thank you for joining
Well,
us.
I probably hit it by accident, just trying to work my settings out. But I'm here to observe and listen and learn and be mindful. I don't have any comment to make at this time.
Christina, thank you. I am going to go to the next person then on Zoom, and that's Michelle Miller. Please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
My name is Michelle Miller, and I'm a District 1 resident and co-founder of Reparations for Amherst. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and R4A co-founder Matthew Andrews. We want to thank the Town Council, GOL Committee, and the Finance Committee and staff for their leadership. Today, NPR reported that 11 U.S. mayors committed to developing pilot projects for reparations. Their stated goal is for these reparations programs to serve as high-profile demonstrations for how the country can move more quickly from conversation to action on reparations for Black Americans. In a news conference, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti said, "Let me be clear. Cities will never have the funds to pay for reparations on our own." And went on to say, "When we have the laboratories of cities show that there is much more to embrace than to fear, we know that we can inspire national action as well." If the council votes tonight to establish a reparations committee and a stabilization fund to be used for reparative justice, Amherst will become a reason for other communities and our federal government to take long overdue action. And your actions will lay the foundation for our community to begin a collaborative healing process. We're also here to comment on the Community Safety Working Group recommendations. We're proud of our community for taking this critical work on and grateful to the members of the CSWG for their dedication and resilience in the midst of a very challenging process. After 6 months of study, the Community Safety Working Group has provided the Town Council with recommendations that are necessary to make substantive change to community safety for Amherst residents and visitors. We urge the Town Council and Town Manager to establish an implementation plan, including identifying revenue streams, to fully support their recommendations. Without delay, please help us to see that you are committed to prioritizing community safety for all Amherst residents and will establish a rigorous pace for implementation of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Michelle. I'm going to now turn to the audience, and I believe this young woman right here in the front with the blue mask on had your hand up earlier, right? Please come forward, make sure the green light is on the mic, and state your name and where you're from and your comment. And again, please keep it to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mattia Kramer. I'm a resident of District 1. I want to thank the co-chairs of the Community Safety Working Group for their comments tonight and state my full support for what they have asked for. I state my full support for fully funding all of the Community Safety Working Group recommendations and to reject the budget as it now stands. If tonight's actions by the council fall short of those actions, then what we as a community need to see is a plan for how funding will be developed now and in the future. We need a robust funding plan for how the Community Safety Working Group recommendations are phased in. We need a good faith effort. We need sufficient funding so that the programs are not set up to fail. And we need to see that immediately. If the budget does not include the recommendations as funded as proposed by the Community Safety Working Group after so many months of labor. This is of the utmost importance to our community for the purposes of healing and for basic safety for all residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Irv Rhodes, you are the next person up on the Zoom. Please unmute, enter the room, state your name and where you live.
My name is Irv Rhodes, and I live in District 5 with two great counselors. I am really honored to be before you. I would like to begin by saying, when I went over the agenda this evening and looked at it, I am in awe of the amount and enormity of the tasks that you, Lynn, have taken on. I really want to applaud that. If you have not gone over that agenda and looked at it in a way in terms of how it had to come about and the work that it took, one needs to do that and applaud the effort behind it. Second, I really appreciate the fact that the Community Safety Working Group has done such a tremendous amount of work. I appreciate their work. I honor their work. I honor their work by making sure that I understood it, went over and over and over it. I believe that the council is left with the decision that the wisdom of the council, the wisdom of the group that is here to make a decision based upon the budget that has been presented, that budget is something that can stand. What I really do not wish to happen is that a budget go forward that is not sustainable. In other words, I do not want a budget that next year we present a budget in the beginning that has an incredible amount, a hole in it that has to be filled by funds that are temporary and one-time funds. The town manager has done a great job in putting together this particular budget, and I fully support it. I also want to speak on behalf of reparations in relationship to the votes coming up on the financing of reparation and the reparations committee. It must be stated that the financing mechanism that has been identified is just one. And I want to repeat that, one financing mechanism, and not the only financing mechanism that the reparations committees will be looking at. What the reparations, in order to support reparations, we need to identify funds that are sustainable, reliable, and consistent over time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to now return to the audience, and I'm just going to keep going along. The young lady right here in the cream-colored blouse. Thank you. Please state your name and where you live.
Hello, my name is Marisol Pierce Bonifaz, and I am from District 1. I work with Amherst Sunrise as the Code to Fund the Police project lead. Amherst Sunrise has been working on a campaign in partnership with the Fund 4 and 3 Amherst to protect ARP school funding since March. We have gathered petition signatures, compiled informative posts, hosted a town hall, and have spoken at previous town council meetings. With this experience, I have been moved by the sheer amount of support there is in Amherst towards protecting school funding and reallocating cuts towards alternative services such as the police department. Over 2 hours of public comment was made at your May 17th town council meeting on the faults in the FY 2022 budget, and Amherst Sunrise gathered 160 signatures of concerned Amherst voters looking to protect and prioritize Amherst education system. Town council, this is your last chance. We have researched, we have spoken with you, we have rallied, and we have raised our voices, and it is up to you. Will you reflect the voices of Amherst in your decision, or will you ignore our demands and continue governing with your own agenda? Listen to us. Listen to the young voices being raised in this town. Listen to those affected primarily by the police. Listen to the community organizers who have worked tirelessly in Amherst for years. and listen to those most affected by the budget cuts. Last year, when there was conversation on defunding the police, the town council claimed there was a need for more research, more information. So more information was provided. The Community Safety Working Group, working diligently and thoroughly all year long, presented a detailed alternative to policing. Instead of respecting this work and representing the voices of Amherst residents, the budget is only funding about 6% of what the group requested. As a young person in the town, I am progressively losing hope in Amherst government. Town council, vote no on the proposed FY 2022 budget. Vote no because the next generation deserves better education. Vote no because the BIPOC community deserves to feel safe in Amherst. Most importantly, vote no to reflect Amherst values. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We're now going to return to Zoom. There is somebody who identifies as capital G and capital B. Please enter the room, state your full name and where you live.
Thank you. I'm Teresa Beaudry. I'm signed into two things. I didn't know how to unmute myself. Resident of the town of Amherst, District 5, speaking on my behalf of myself and my family. I am a recent victim of a horrific violent crime in the Amherst town. I am here to speak for my family to let you know that our feeling of safety has been threatened. I am here probably as a solo person to let you know we do not support the reparations program or the CREST program and not hiring of new police when positions are vacated. We are proud of the Amherst Police Department. We support the Amherst Police Department. I'm sorry I'm emotional. This is an emotional plea. We are asking and requesting enhancement of community policing to develop new programs to address diversity, equity, and inclusion within our police department, where funding is available to help with that. I am part of the educational system in Western Massachusetts. This is taking place in all of our educational institutions. We have a program in place that we can use to address these concerns that everyone has voiced so far. The police department is educated and trained to address the community needs. With further reform, support, and education, they are best suited to address the community and our needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to return to the audience. Julian, nice to see you.
Great to see you all in person again. But I do come to this meeting with a crucial position to share before our FY22 budget is passed. I would say that we have gained some funding through CREST, and I'm appreciative for the funding we have gained. However, it's not enough. This program is essential change to how public safety is provided in our town, and we must fund both CREST and our Amherst Regional School System. Contrary to some arguments, we do have funding for this program available. It's just that we need to seek it out by rejecting the FY22 budget. The answer is clear. There are millions of dollars for funding CREST in our police department budget, and we must take that funding to provide equitable community safety as CREST has recommended, and doing that through rejecting the FY22 budget. Last year, the council chose to avoid reducing the police department budget and instead accept the recommendations of the CSWG. This decision, you now have a decision to make, which is to either accept the recommendations of the working group that you folks appointed, or to disavow the commitments you've made to your constituents. I understand that funding for the school system, and I know a comment was made about defunding DPW engineering as well. And it must be understood that when you're making the choice to defund other departments, you are actively defunding those instead of the police department. And with passionate respect and regard for justice, equity, safety, community well-being, public education, student opportunity, and public infrastructure, I do strongly urge you to reject the FY22 budget and come up with a strategy to fund CRESS. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Okay. Returning to Zoom, Birdie, please come in, state your name, full name, and where you live.
Hello, my name is Abigail Newman, but I go by Birdie and I'm a resident of District 4. I'm urging the council to reject any budget that doesn't adequately fund the Community Safety Working Group's proposals as well as our schools. So that means rejecting this budget. The Community Safety Working Group and the 7 Generations Movement Collective got clear results from their research that our current public safety system in Amherst is not working for BIPOC residents. And they created a set of proposals to make Amherst truly safe and equitable. A predominantly white group of counselors looking at these recommendations and deciding to pick and choose between them and drastically underfund them is really disheartening and infuriating. This issue is time sensitive, both locally and nationally. Locally, BIPOC residents are facing dehumanization and disrespect by police. Nationally, we have a chance to decrease the power of policing, which is something I now understand as a racist institution. I think this is a really great chance for Amherst to take big steps toward anti-racism, toward safety. And I think any transition is scary, but I think this one isn't as risky as I'm hearing expressed, because this is not immediately like drastically reducing our police force. It's just like sort of the start of a big transition that needs to happen. And to the extent, I'm trying to figure out how to word this right. I think what I'm trying to say is that the portion of policing that addresses violent crime is quite small. I think it's less than 10% of calls. And so I don't think we'll be sort of interfering with the way the police are being used right now by moving toward CRESS and by funding other community safety working group proposals and our schools. So that is why I would urge the council to reject this budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Birdie. Nancy Sardison, please come forward. State your name and where you live.
My name is Nancy Sardison. I live at 115 State Street, which is in District 1. First of all, I want to just give out a big shout out to the Community Safety Working Group. I spent the last couple of months of the pandemic going in and out of some of their meetings over the last few months, that when the first budget appropriation came out, I was shocked. And to be perfectly honest, I was embarrassed. And so that got me involved in more, and I've watched more of the budget meetings. It's the beauty of Zoom. I guess you get to do this. But boy, you guys have a lot of meetings. Woo! Woo! But I do want to thank particularly Kanisha Walker and Brianna Owen, your work and the presentation that you made to the board over this period of time, and your tenacity in keeping on doing it, I think brings the energy that is here today, and perhaps hopefully an energy for change. And I really want to thank you, and I hope you want the town council or do something. You made your ancestors proud. But what really brings me here today is that you heard me talk about being in and out of Zoom, and I got to tell you, I watched a lot of your Zoom, and I didn't like a lot of what I saw. I watched a budget meeting where the first thing on the appropriations was to spend over $1 million to rip out the parking out here and put in a common. The second order of business was the first presentation by the working group, for which the only response you really had for them was there is no money in the budget. When you just spent $1 million to rip in the commons. Some of the optics, I have to say, left a little bit to be desired. And then, of course, I was at that I watched the budget meeting on May 27th, which was nothing short of shameful to leave the community safety working group out of the budget appropriations meetings as you're talking about their work. Because I don't know, I've read their work and I've listened to them, and there's a lot of work in there. And it seems to a lot of it to have just been dismissed out of nowhere. But anyway, what I really, all of us are coming out of this pandemic, and most of us spent a lot of time, the George Floyd, I don't know about you guys, but I shed a few tears and my stomach rolled many times. And I felt deeper than I have ever felt before the effects of racism in this country and the need to do something different. And I spent a lot of time with myself over how it is. I'm old enough where I saw Rodney King. I watched that.
Nancy, you need to wrap up, please.
Pardon?
You need to wrap up, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, all I want to say to you all is that, this is not going to work if you don't work with that working group. Those are really wonderful people, and they've worked very hard and they've done great work. And I think the best thing is to send out a message to the BIPOC kids in this community that you stand behind them and you want to make a difference, is to work with the committee, with the group, to come up with the change we need in Amherst.
Thank you for your comments, Nancy. Lynn Smith, you're on Zoom. Please enter the room and state your name and where you live.
My name is Jacqueline Smith Crooks, and I am living in Amherst, Mass. For the second time around. I lived here once before in the 70s as a graduate student and have returned over the past dozen years or so. I live on Bay Road, and I am at this stage of my life no longer a graduate student. I am what would be termed as an elder or senior. And in that light, I find myself even more drawn to looking at issues that are relevant to elderly seniors, and especially Black and people of color. Amherst has been listed over time as a great place for elderly people to retire. And I'm here this evening to ask, to implore, to point out the importance of upstaging a highly invisible group, and that group is Black and people of color who are elderly. I am calling on Amherst to afford a budget of $10,000 to conduct a research project and survey to explore ways in which this place that has been listed as a good place for people to retire, a good place for elderly people to be able to live in an affordable, accessible, and sustainable manner. I would like to know that, and like you to know that, the working group's work, while it may not specify elders or seniors, there are definite implications. The safety and the health of people in this community depend to a large extent on those who care about those people. And I ask that Amherst, Massachusetts demonstrate the way in which it cares about people, not just at one stage of their lives when they can give freely, but at stages where there can be an interactive activity going on, the giving and taking, and not waiting for them to become helpless, but helping to keep them fully alive in as many ways as possible. Because there has been that high level of invisibility of Black and people of color, there is not a lot of information available so that the town, so that the people in the town can open their eyes to an invisible population. In light of that, I submit the request that there be set aside, not for 2 years, 10 years, but for immediate use by the town and go through existing organization in the town to conduct this survey research. I submit this to you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and believing that Amherst will come through. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Jacqueline. We're going to move to the audience, and I believe the young woman, or whichever one of you would like to come up. Thank you. I want to make sure that if you've made public comment or plan to, that you have signed in with your information. Thank you. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Yaping Douglas, and I live in Turners Falls, and I've worked in Amherst for the last 8 years. I'm also speaking tonight for my sister, Jennifer Douglas, who is an Amherst resident. My mother is also an Amherst resident, and my sister has 2 young children, and so she couldn't make it tonight because she's putting them to bed. Yeah. So I wanted to speak also in favor of implementing, rejecting the current budget and requesting that all of the community safety working groups recommendations be fully funded for this year. And I wanted to read some quotes from other elected officials around the country to let you counselors know how you are not alone in this fight and how you will be joining many other elected officials who are moving money out of a system which is punitive and been proven to not work into recommendations that will really keep us all safer. And I'll start by reading a quote from a Pittsfield city councilor, Councilor Moon, from 1 year ago, and then I'll move into some current quotes from the last week. So she said a year ago, I feel like there is a lot of support from our counselors and our administration about Black Lives Matter and what is happening nationally, said Moon. And I just honestly think that unless we're following that up with budget appropriations and policy changes, I think it's just lip service. The Black and Brown community, specifically in Pittsfield, has asked us to reallocate dollars that are going to the Pittsfield Police Department to serve the most vulnerable in our community and not criminalize them for issues that are out of poverty. I think that we really need to take stock on how we're appropriating these dollars. And then moving into this year, just this last week, there was an article about Burlington, Vermont, which just 1 year ago, it's been nearly a year since the Burlington City Council voted in favor of historic police cuts that reduced the officer headcount by 30% in response to last year's protests. And City Council President on June 16th, just this last week, said, "The reason we made that decision is because we have continued to see persistent disparities in how the public safety system is for people of color in our community. We can't continue to do the same things and expect different results when it comes to racial justice as it applies to public safety." City Councilor President and progressives believe Burlington could be a nationwide leader under the new plan they're promoting. He says, "We have an opportunity here to dramatically transform public safety and take a leadership role among small cities in the United States." So that was from Burlington, Vermont.
I need to have you wrap up, please.
Okay.
You're really past, you're at your 3 minutes.
Okay, I will submit the rest, but the point being, you would not be alone. There are many other city councilors and elected officials who are fighting for these changes and standing up for what's right. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to remind all of you that you're welcome to submit your comments to us by email. That's to towncouncil@amherstma.gov. Okay, we're going to go back to Robert Eastman. He's on Zoom, and please state your name and where you live.
Okay. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Robert Eastman. I live in Northampton, but I work in Amherst and spend a lot of time there. I also have I grew up in the so-called Pioneer Valley and have spent a lot of time in Amherst over the years. And tonight I'm speaking to echo the calls to fully fund the new CREST department as recommended by the Community Safety Working Group, but also to support the demands put forth by Defund 413 Amherst, which include freezing all Amherst Police Department hiring, cutting the police budget by 45%, having 50% fewer APD officers over 2 years, and to fully fund the CREST program. And I just wanted to read some quotes by someone named Ebony Morgan, who is a coordinator for Cahoots, and which is a non-police mobile crisis response team in Eugene, Oregon. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And I'm sure that the CREST program in Amherst, will certainly have to be designed to meet the unique needs of our community, but these quotes are relevant and why fully funding is important. She says that Cahoots has been running for over 31 years and diverts roughly a fifth of 911 calls from the police department, and the staff have never incurred a serious injury on the job in their existence. Cahoots crisis workers are not required to be licensed social workers, and they do not put voluntary holds on people. 75% of their staff identify as having lived experience with emotional distress and criminalization. She goes on to say, if people are modeling off of us and their amount of funding versus output is going to be compared to ours, it is unethical for me not to say something about where we are, she said, describing how difficult it is to retain workers who leave Cahoots for better paying jobs. If you're trying to find a way to keep it as cheap as possible, crisis responders will not be able to find room for growth and advancement and financial security within their role and will forever cycle through it. I believe there's no such thing as overfunding a crisis team because the function of it is to go about and be helpful and do good and harm reduction and provide safety. That's my own addition, I think is one of the most fundamental roles of the town government. She went on to say, trying to do it on the cheap does a disservice to the crisis responders and people they serve who observe the better funded first responders with the fancy equipment and new things they get what they need. For people who are finally being offered a response that they may trust, for that to be held back by funding really just further drives home the message that their needs are not as important. It is offensive to the community members in need to tell the people that are going to respond to them with trauma-informed, client-centered care that they do not need to do it that they need to do it as cheaply as possible or they will be shut down. Imagine how well it would work if the city and
I need you to wrap up, please.
Yep, I'm wrapping up. Imagine how well it would work if the city and the people who made decisions stood behind it and supported it to work instead of treating it as though it may fail. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We're going back to the audience. The gentleman back here on the right, on my right. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Ashwin Ravi Kumar, and I live in District 4, work at Amherst College, and I'm an outgoing member of the Energy and Climate Action Committee for the town of Amherst. So first of all, I'd really like to thank the Community Safety Working Group for their indefatigable efforts over the past months to put together a truly incredible report with a solid core that would allow us, if implemented, to reduce the footprint of policing and build peer-led, non-coercive alternatives that we badly need, and that would reflect our values as an anti-racist community. To paraphrase Martin Luther King, a budget is not a mere allocation of resources, but a moral document that tells us what we care about as a community, and more importantly, and this is key, who we center in our decision-making. Given that this committee, the Community Safety Working Group, was created by the council, created by the town of Amherst, we have an obligation to listen to their recommendations. The budget that has been presented by the town manager grows the footprint of policing rather than shrinking it, and it fails to set up alternative systems that are likely to succeed. We badly need these non-police alternatives, and we really don't need reformed police. As a person of color myself, when I am going through a crisis, I do not want to call a cop that has been through better trainings, right? I don't want to call a cop. I don't feel better calling a cop because I might have a better complaint or oversight process afterwards. What will make me feel safe, and what make me feel safe right now, is being able to call someone who isn't a cop at all, that has relevant training and experience to help me and support me through the crisis that I might be going through. And based on the interviews that were elicited through the Community Safety Working Group, 40 out of 42 residents of color in Amherst that were interviewed feel similarly to me. This is an overwhelming fact that we need to confront right now as a community. So the Community Safety Working Group has charted a course for us to build true community safety through the CREST program. And this is a great thing that we have that we can build. They're calling for 15 staff with 6 to 9 non-cop dispatch folks to build something new, to build something transformative, to build something innovative like this. We need to fund it on the order of how we fund the police. We need to fund it fully to the tune of the $2.2 million that are called for in the report. The good news, again, is that we are in really good company. We would be joining a growing wave of municipalities across the country who are acting like Black Lives Matter through their budgets. We would be honoring the work of the Community Safety Working Group members of color and telling them that we didn't just waste their time. So I'll just close by saying that there are no doubt a myriad of reasons, right? There's probably many procedural objections that you might raise to funding the program fully right now, saying that we might need to start small and then grow, that the exact needs for the program are unclear, which really isn't true because their report is so thorough, that budget lines are inflexible and non-fungible, that more funding would merely be symbolic at this stage. As Ta-Nehisi Coates put it, there is nothing mere about symbols. Budgets are aspirational documents and budgets are moral documents. We have the power, you as counselors have the power to set our aspirations. To say that a town that is committed to anti-racism, is committed to climate justice, cannot have 36 cops, 1 sustainability officer, and $400,000 to build a new and transformative program that would keep people like me safe in this community.
I need you to wrap up.
Okay, so if you really believe that Black Lives Matter, I ask that you vote like it today, that you do not waste the time and efforts of the Community Safety Working Group, and that you stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to return to the Zoom, and Dr. Dimitri Shabazz, please come forward, state your name and where you live.
Thank you. I live in South Amherst, and my name is indeed Dr. Demetria Shabazz. Again, I commend the CSWG, of course, in all their work, and the 2 chairs that spoke tonight. And I do appreciate the struggle in which the town council and the town manager are situated, but I offer, I guess, these words having worked with the CSWG. Policies are choices and budgets are values. You know, one of the prevailing thoughts right now regarding small town growth in the US is to ask this critical question humbly, right? And to listen. Where and how are the people in your community? What are their struggles? Where are they struggling? And for 6 months, you had a very a cheaply provided consulting group that did work that you would have paid a consulting group such as my own thousands and thousands of dollars. And they asked this critical question to the residents of Amherst, some of the most vulnerable residents of Amherst. They asked that, they heard, they listened, and they came up with a plan. So I'm asking that you, the town council, direct the town manager to resubmit a budget that fully funds the community responders for equity, safety, and service, the CREST program as an alternative to provide public safety services in situations that do not involve violence or serious crime, and fund also the equally important recommendations of the Community Safety Working Group. We should ask ourselves as we examine policing in general, are the majority of the calls that our police attend to requiring a uniform and a gun? Calls such as noise complaints, drunken disorderly traffic stops, loitering. Are these calls that if a loved one of yours was found confused due to mental illness, is it appropriate for an armed officer in a uniform to attend to that? For the most part, BIPOC folk are unable to participate in shaping town policy, policing just being one of these policies. We have a mainly white, privileged council that do not fully represent the BIPOC, immigrant, working poor, non-English speaking residents, and we are not part of the choices often that the town makes. And these choices have not historically benefited us. The CSWG represents that opportunity for BIPOC and other marginalized members of this community to shape policies that will and do benefit us directly. This is lastly—
I need you to wrap up, please.
Yes, I'm wrapping up. What I want to say is that we in 2020, 2021, we have seen a wealth gap only widen. That wealth gap is here in Amherst. You have a group, CSWG, that is working to repair that wealth gap, creating a multicultural center, youth programming besides the CREST program. This is what we need to invest in for the future of this community. That gap will only widen. And if we want to have that beautiful community that we saw during Juneteenth, we need to support CSWG. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to go back. Did either of the two women standing in the back of the room, did you raise your hands earlier? You did. Please, one of you, please come forward. You need to leave that back there since it will visually impair the rest of people from seeing. Thank you. It's part of our council policy. Please make sure we can see it by having it back there. Thank you. Great, thanks. Please state your name and where you live.
My name is Lydia Irons. I live on Jeffrey Lane in Amherst. Tonight, I'm here to ask you to fully fund the CSWG's recommendations and extend the CSWG's charge so that they can lead the implementation of their proposals. I'm also asking that you defund the Amherst PD by 45%. Your conversations around the CSWG and the CREST program are dancing around the actual point. We've been telling you to take money away from the police budget for over a year. And at the budget hearing on May 17th, over 100 people attended with nearly 3 hours of public comment. And their statements started with defund the police. We're asking for CREST, but we're also asking to defund the police. By cutting the APD by 45%, it would allow Amherst to fully fund the CSWG's complete recommendations of programs and prevent the school budget cuts. The APD would still have more than $3.4 million. Behind me on that banner that I was not allowed to bring forward is a quote from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. It says in part, "The great stumbling block in the stride towards freedom is the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace with the absence of tension to a positive peace with the presence of justice." I believe this perfectly describes some of the members on this town council. You tell us we can have CREST so long as the white town directors can make key decisions for how it will be implemented. You tell us we can have a DEI director so long as the person working under them is already town staff. The rest of the CSWG's recommendations can be thought through by the DEI director, but once they're hired, but you won't even consider advising the town manager to reduce the police budget, and you won't even mention that the CSWG wants you to reduce the size of the police force by half in 5 years. This is maddening. The way that the CSWG has been treated while they do this vital and important work for the town is disgusting. No other town committee has been shown so much disrespect. At the same time that the APD is getting fruit baskets, the CSWG has been met with barrier after barrier. One of the large problems that the CSWG has been trying to point out to you is how little Black leadership there is in this town. And then you prove their point by deciding that they can't stay on to implement their recommendations. You've said it's because they were never supposed to be a long-standing group and that that's not what the people of the working group signed up for. So you couldn't possibly ask them to stay longer as if you're doing them a favor, but in fact, you're actively ignoring their requests. The CSWG is asking to stay to lead the implementation of their recommendations. So don't pretend like you are being thoughtful, but you can be thoughtful now. You can reject this budget. Think over how you're going to vote tonight. And if you want to protect a negative piece and a status quo, or if you want to be a headlight leading our town to higher levels of justice, equity, and safety for all, defund the Amherst Police Department, fully fund the CREST program, and let CSWG lead.
Thank you for your comments. Professor Amilcar Shabazz from Zoom, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Amilcar Shabazz, District 5, South Amherst. Really encouraging you to, as many others have already spoken, so I won't waste time repeating so many things, but to heed the budget process, slow down till you can get this right. Also encouraging Community Safety Working Group to continue in some form or fashion. You need that kind of input. You need that kind of interaction. Also reparations. We are at a very important moment. Look forward to your continuing the steps you've taken in the right direction. Finally, only to say thank you for keeping this hybrid process going of Zoom along with the in-person there. I'm happy to have started it when I was on school committee and also a American Council on Education fellow in New York. And so those were the first meetings where we used this type of technology. And I salute you for keeping it going, both in public comment and in terms of our ability to participate with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Amilcar. We're going to go back to the audience. I believe there was a young woman back here. Please come forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Georgia Malcolm. I'm a resident of Amherst.
Please move to the mic, please, so we can hear everything. It's tough with a mask on, we know.
My name is Georgia Malcolm, and I'm a resident of Amherst. I work for the school district. Last Tuesday, I was driving in Hadley, and I pulled into the parking lot by Walmart, and I saw a bus with an African-American man on there with dreads. And there was a police officer. And I really wasn't in the mood. I didn't want to get involved, but I thought about my son. I thought about George Floyd, Tamir Rice. So I pulled over. And there was another Black woman that pulled up. I saw when the officer took the kid off the bus, he called for backup. And the Black woman also pulled up and stopped. And I really was torn. I'm like, do I get my camera? I really don't want to get involved. But like I said, my son and all the Black men got killed. I went into mom mode. And I walked over to the officers and I was like, hey, what's going on? I want this young Black man to get home alive tonight. And they said they're investigating a crime. And I said, what was the crime? They said someone from Walmart called and said he assaulted a female. The kid is screaming, saying, I didn't do anything, you're gonna arrest me. So I became a barrier. I put myself between him and the police because he had to get home alive. And the officers handled it well because quite frankly, their names are Officer Thomas Douglas and Officer Barones. And they could have told me to get lost, But I told them, I said, I want him to get home alive because he was acting erratic. He was not going to comply. He was going into his pockets. He was going into the bag. And I put myself between, I was in the middle. He's here. The cops are here. Because my intent, he was going to make it home alive. And if someone had done that, or if the officers were open, that maybe George Floyd's death could have been prevented. And, you know, they tried to get him to get his name. They said it wrong. I said to him, but I told him, I was talking to him. He says, Auntie, he got so scared. He's like, Auntie, can we go home now? Because he didn't want to go with them. And the officer's like, is he your relative? I'm like, no. And I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you what I tell my son. If you do some stupid shit, you're on your own. If you did not commit a crime, I'm going to protect you. I told him, I said, I work with the school. I called Dee Shabazz. I called Pat Anabuku. Nobody answered me. I called Vera. And she texted me, I said, my phone battery is dead. I said, Black Man Police Hadley. She called me back from a number. I said, Georgia, I'm on my way. Give me 10 minutes. It worked out because he gave them the wrong number, Social Security. And I said to him, you know, what's on your birth certificate? He told me his name. And he said, I changed it because something with his dad or something. And the officers confirmed it because I think they took it wrong the last time.
I need you to finish up,
But,
please.
and I really would like to finish, but I think this is important because it, you know, at the end, I said to the officers, I says, Black lives matter, Blue lives matter, all lives matter. And the reality is that at that point, I was a member of, I worked with the 7th generation as one of the community ambassadors. And I can tell you, there is a problem in Amherst. I've spoken to fabulous Black men who were in tears on the phone. There is a problem that you guys need to address. And I'm just telling you my story that made me realize, the officer asked me if I'm a social worker. And I said, no, I'm a secretary. I spoke to him today, I'm wrapping up. And he said, you know, Georgia, bring your son, bring the kids, because he says, I can learn from you, you can learn from me. And he appreciated the fact that I saw his humanity. And Vera's husband said to me, he said, you made him feel safe. So, you know, nothing I say, I mean, like I said, when I did the work,
Thank you for
I heard
sharing
it.
this.
When I worked with Dee, I heard it. So they didn't make up stories. I have white women who are scared because they have seen things. So there's a problem and you guys need to be aware of that. I was one of the ambassadors. I interviewed people, I spoke to people, and I was a shield for that Black man last week because I wanted to make sure he went home alive.
Thank you. I'm going to point out that on the list of people that had raised their hands in Zoom, Nadine Mazard was the last person, and then 2 others have raised theirs. We'll see where we are, but I need to get a full sense of where we are. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Hopping Tree is next. You're on Zoom. Please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Daniel Josh Aaron. I'm a longtime Amherst resident, District 5 South Amherst. Father of an ARHS student, recent grad, class of 2021. Interfaith Opportunity Network member. And I'm very concerned that the budget be re-examined to honor the working group's work, and it makes no sense to not include their work, having asked them to do the work and not look at their recommendations. I have friends and family and colleagues as a town employee, former town employee, excuse me, who are very concerned. I don't know if they were represented in the statistics of who was surveyed, but I know that they do not feel safe in this community as marginalized people, and that goes back generations. I want to support the fact that the town council has been working hard and has certainly been moved to increase from the original smaller amount, but I believe going forward as a teacher and a father that we really need to support our youth of color, and support a multicultural center, which was not funded at all in this budget. And, you know, I believe that putting our efforts into education and supporting the community will reduce the need for police and in the future. And I do honor that that needs to be looked at in a timely fashion and not done suddenly, but it does need to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Was there anybody else in the audience who had raised their hand initially? Yes, please, the woman on my left, please come forward. State your name and where you live.
My name is Allegra Clark. I live in District 2. I do use she, her pronouns, but I would like to remind everybody that some people might not. So if we could try and use more inclusive language when calling on people in the audience, I think people would appreciate that. I am here tonight again to ask that you fully fund the CSWG's recommendations and extend the CSWG's charge so that they can lead the implementation of their proposal. Over the past year, we have seen hours of public comment supporting defunding the police to reinvest in community-led safety, to reinvest in education, and to reinvest in public health. At the request of the council and within an impossible timeframe, the CSWG did put together a well-researched proposal for an alternative to policing in Amherst. Their proposal specified that funding for their recommendations should come from the APD and should include a reduction in the force. Yet rather than acting on recommendations to reallocate funding, the town manager's budget includes funding for 2 additional police officers. We've heard that these things take time. We can't move too fast. The stuff is too important to rush. However, we have seen some very quick action on the reparations front. And I do want to say that this is also very important work. And I hope that that also gets passed. I like to think of the CSWG's recommendations as living reparations, as ones that will tear down the white supremacy that's ingrained into all the institutions, including policing, that must occur if we are to have an Amherst that is safe and just for all. So with the CSWG's recommendations, they are aimed not only at rectifying past harm, but building the foundation for a more equitable future. They consider not only the alternatives to policing, but also the programs that will support people in this community to not need services from public safety officials in the first place. Again, I'm going to end and say, please reject this budget and fund fully the CSWG's proposals.
Thank you for your comments, Allegra. Joanne May Booty, I think it is. Joanne, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me and for giving me this time tonight. My name is Joanna May Booty, and I currently reside in Montague, Mass, but my partner and I both work and spend a lot of our time and money in Amherst. I also have friends that live and work in your vibrant community. I'll keep it briefly when I speak tonight in support of the community members who are urging this town council to reject the FY22 budget. Please fully fund community care and establish reparations. I urge the town council to please listen to the people of your community now who have asked you to try new and innovative approaches that will be focusing on care and harm reduction. Please set an example for the surrounding communities. You can make history Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. And the other, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Allegra, for reminding everyone that you can't just decide what people's genders are for them. by
I'm
looking
sorry,
at them.
please speak into the mic. I can't hear you.
I will do that. My name is Zoe Crabtree. I live in District 5. Tonight, I'm here to ask you to fully fund the CSWG's recommendations and extend the CSWG's charge so that they can lead the implementation of their proposals. The town manager has proposed and defended the idea of funding a pilot program for CRESS, but anything less than a fully operational program that you can call directly 24/7 will set the CRESS program up for failure. Like members of the CSWG have said, CRESS is not a mental health crisis program. It is, as you asked for, an alternative for those who do not trust the police. Making sure that CRESS is trusted by the community is paramount to its success. How can you build community trust in something that isn't there for you when you need it? One of the arguments we've heard over and over about why the police need so much money is that they need to be ready at all times to respond to a call. And that they handle calls that aren't necessarily the best equipped for, because they're the only ones who are available 24/7. Other services like the Amherst Survival Center and Craig's Doors aren't available all the time because they don't have the funding to do that. And yet, when directors from both of those organizations spoke at the budget hearing this year, they didn't ask for more funding for themselves. They said they wanted a program like CRESS to exist to support their work. To me, hearing that the police handle certain kinds of calls because they're the only ones open is a reason to fund CRESS at a level that means it's available 24/7, not a reason to keep funding the police department budget. I also plan to read a quote you've already heard this evening by Ebony Morgan, who is somebody who has worked at Cahoots as a coordinator for 3 years. And I will briefly summarize that quote for you again. Ebony argues that if you do not try to fully fund programs and that if you try to do them as cheap as possible, you will continue to have a rotating door of staff who leave after you have trained them, and that is not sustainable. She also says that
please wrap up.
She also says that when you try to do things as cheap as you can, you're telling the people who these programs are for that their needs are not as important. And that's a message that the town has been sending loud and clear, especially when the town manager decided against extending the CSWG's charge beyond September, which is an extension that the CSWG themselves asked for. If, as you stated in your December 2020 resolution against structural racism, that you continue to affirm, quote, your commitment to eradicating the effects of systemically racist practices of town government, then understand that dissolving the CSWG at the end of August is in direct opposition to that goal. We need BIPOC leadership in Amherst. Let the CSWG lead and keep doing their jobs.
Thank you for your comments. We're back to Zoom. Margaret Sawyer, please enter the room and unmute your mic. State your name and where you live.
Hi, this is Margaret Sawyer, and I'm on Station Road. I was really honored to have the privilege of working on a community letter to all of you. We were excited to get 220 signatures so far, though more people keep weighing in. The vast majority of them residents of Amherst, asking you to fully fund the CSWG's recommendations. And I really hope you all will consider, I hope you'll reject the budget tonight. There's clearly a lot of work to be done. I don't know if I can overstate some of the points that have already been made about the shame that I think lots of us felt when the budget was first proposed at such a low amount after inviting this group of people to bravely come forward and make recommendations and work so hard, and then to see such a low amount offered by our town manager towards their plan. I appreciate that each of you, we all know you're in your first years of doing this. Our whole town is in our first years of doing this. We appreciate that you came back and increased that. but you're in a place now where your leadership is being called upon. And so many of us are so ashamed by the treatment that you've shown to the working group, and so little gratitude. It's been set up as almost like the opposing party for all of you. Seeing the lovely arrangement that Mr. Bockelman sent to the police also just made me wonder how it is that we don't think that that kind of outreach is so important to this working group. So we hope that you will recognize that your words matter and your actions matter. Each of you matters, and you are there to represent all of us. And it's time for our town to start doing some really hard work. And it begins with funding the recommendations that were made to you by this brave group of people. And I'll keep sending you more names as more people sign on. It's been exciting to watch the list grow.
Thank you for your comments. Was there anybody else in? Yes, please come forward.
Hi. All right, I fully admit I was on Zoom and then I was like, I can't stay away. So I came downtown. All right, hi everybody. I'm Anna Devlin-Gauthier. I'm a District 5 resident. And I'm so grateful to the members of our community who have given public comment today, both in person and on Zoom. I want to briefly touch on something that is underlying a lot of what's been discussed in public comment, and I want to just name it. The CSWG was founded for a reason, and they did an incredible job. The recommendations were not pulled out of thin air. They were thoughtfully crafted and based in research. It was an investment of time, of money, and what it has the potential to be is either an investment of trust or a continuing deep hurt to members of our community. The last time I spoke, I asked about the possibility of a phased approach to the CREST recommendation specifically. I'm so grateful to the members of the CSWG for clearly explaining why that was a terrible idea. I'm really grateful to them, and I trust them in their rationale as to why this cannot be phased in. It's clear that in order for CREST to demonstrate its potential, it must be fully funded. And that for change to continue, the CSWG must not be dissolved. This is an opportunity to show that you trust our community. You trust the members of this committee to have done the work they were tasked with, to show that you're not building performative committees. The CSWG has demonstrated through the thoroughness of their recommendations that they deserve our trust. Let's give it to them by rejecting the budget as it stands and fully funding their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you for
And I'll
comments,
sign it.
Anna. Carolyn Murray is on Zoom. Please enter the room, state your name and where you live. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Caroline Murray. I live in District 3. I have lived in Amherst for close to 40 years and raised both of my wonderful children in Amherst, who also went to the Amherst public schools and who are now powerful Black women who do not want to come back to town to visit because of many of the experiences that they had here, both in the treatment by the police on a couple of occasions, and also some of the treatment that they received in the public school system and the structural racism that is rampant in our town. Now, I think it's important to note that that is not unusual, that our entire country suffers from this problem. But Amherst has actually created a committee and had a vision for an alternative future. That's so beautiful and so brilliant. And I am afraid that in the course of the last 6 months that many folks have sort of devolved back into an us and them mentality. And I urge you all to continue to imagine a new future and to understand that the proposals by the working group are about all of us. Our entire community benefits when we invest in social services, in housing, in education, in social justice. And when we stop criminalizing behaviors that are not requiring police presence with a gun, which is 90% of the calls currently in Amherst. We know this. Everyone has spoken beautifully. You all know the facts to be true. And I'm urging all of you to be your best selves and to imagine the future if we can actually come together and we can do some healing with the members of the committee and the members of the BIPOC community and the members of the rest of the community that may be concerned about this issue. We need to come together. We need to do some healing. And I'm urging you to be your best selves and support the work of the Community Safety Working Group and fully fund the recommendations. Finally, in conclusion, I would just like to make a suggestion. I have been participating in town government for some time and watched a number of committees, and I've never seen this many people of color participate in any public avenue here. And I have also watched 4 separate times when people were not asked to state their name and when they were told that you don't know how to pronounce their name. I encourage you to ask people to state their name in full. And if you don't know how to pronounce it, to ask them. I'm the mother of 2 children with names that are difficult to pronounce. And let's show everyone the same respect. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Deborah Ferrara, you're on, excuse me, there's no one else in the audience that has raised their hand to speak, right? Okay. Deborah Ferrara, you're on Zoom. Please enter the room and state your name. And
Hello,
where you-
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Deborah Ferreira. I live on Sackle Drive in Amherst. I'm on the Community Safety Working Group. I'm one of the members. So I just want to say again, just to restate, obviously I'm not going to take too much time, but just to restate that this is incredibly important what you all do today. It's time to take a stand. It's time to stand for safety for all members of Amherst and not just the members who are white property owners. We need to really stand for all residents, specifically BIPOC residents, need to reject the budget, need to put fully all the recommendations that we worked on for months and months and months that is backed up by data, hard data, and testimony of people that live in Amherst, and need to continue the Community Safety Working Group. Because without that, I fail to see how these recommendations are going to be implemented. So that's it. That's all I need to say. And I want to support and obviously support everything that the co-chairs said, all of what everyone has said. My heart goes out to Georgia Malcolm, who said that story early on in terms of that young man. And I'm happy that she was there to keep him safe. And that's why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more people that have had their hands up for a while, so I'm going to go to them. Nadine, please state your full name and where you live. Nadine?
Lynn, can I go one more because I'm in commuting, and then can I go after the next person if you don't mind?
Sure.
And I'll be stopped in a minute.
Absolutely. Amara, please enter the room, state your name and where you live. And you need to yeah, there you go.
Hello, my name is Amara Donovan. I use she, her pronouns, and I live in District 3. I'm a proud Puerto Rican mother who graduated from ARHS and UMass Amherst. I'm here tonight in support of the CSWG and their request for full funding of the CRUST program and all other recommendations, including a multicultural center, youth programming, and other essential services targeted at BIPOC folks in our community, which are long overdue. I'm here advocating for an anti-racist approach to public safety and wellness in this town. It's vital that our investment policies and practices reflect this value. COVID recovery is a moment of reckoning with a broken policing system that has too far long disenfranchised BIPOC youth, families, and community members. It's also a moment of reckoning with a town in which Black and Brown people are disadvantaged and disenfranchised, and we can see are impacted in exacerbated rates by our police. After several surveys, forums, endless public comment, and countless meetings with town organizations to design solutions to community safety that work for BIPOC people, this is an asset that you all should be grateful for and lean into. Making BIPOC residents jump through hoops, collect more data, confuse them with inaccurate information, then rejecting their requests for time and investment is systemic racism in action. However, it is clear that that district leadership is using Black and Brown people to check a box. Create a BIPOC working group, check. Listen to their research findings and recommendations, check. Reject the CSWG's free labor and community engagement, check. Disapprove of their request for an extension of free labor, check. Dismantle the group in September, check. subjecting BIPOC community members to a hamster wheel of exhaustion and trauma and barring BIPOC community members from any real power here in Amherst, just like the murderer of which this town was named after. We know this story all too well and have seen it all play out again and again, generation after generation. We see your grins and hear your white tears at all of these meetings. We see your power hoarding and barriers to equity, and we want none of it. I want you all to know that this generation, my generation, and the ones after me, we're different. We're watching, we're strategizing, and we know what's up. Many of your own children are out here with me in the streets, screaming, defund the police. Will you hear them? We will unseat you if you refuse to invest in the BIPOC community so that we can create the world we've always dreamed of, one that serves us, our children, our friends, our community members. We have the opportunity to design and experience something that has never existed, and we won't stop. Reject this budget and do the right thing. All of you will be okay. All of you have privilege of avoidance, of being blind to the corruption and abuse and racism that BIPOC community members experience on a daily basis in the town of Amherst. Your vote no isn't a rejection of your own safety. It's an inclusion of ours and the many BIPOC community members you are elected to represent. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I'm waiting to see if the other hand comes up. Nadine, you're back? Nadine?
Yes, I'm back. Thank you, Lynn, for allowing me to, allowing the next person to come in. My name is Nadine Mazard. I'm District 9, East Pleasant Street of Amherst, Massachusetts. I have made public comments before. I just want to say that I stand behind pretty much everything that everyone has stated so far. I feel as though any more words can only make one more person to just know that can hopefully make a difference. I remember the last time, Lynn, you had mentioned that we can find a grant. I really feel as though if we could be at the forefront of Amherst to start these anti-racist policies and to create this community safety group and to have that as an option, we can find ways to be the light for other individuals and other towns and other cities and to make this community more inclusive. Lastly, I want to say that I do think that the Community Service Board should not be dismantled in September. I do think there needs to be some additional oversight with the town of Amherst, and I do think that there can be some defunding because for a small town, Amherst Police does not need as much money as we have allocated, and we just need to take that risk and be at the forefront and make that change and be the change that we want the world to see. And I believe that most of these individuals here on this committee can make this difference and help make the difference. So I do agree that we say no to the current budget with regards to that and to help fund more these other programs that are more beneficial and more inclusive. Thank you.
Nadine, thank you for your comments. Pat Onabaku, please enter the room and state your name and where you live.
Good evening. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Pat Ananibako and I live on Tamarack Drive. First, I want to thank all the people who have spoken tonight in support of CSWG, which I'm a member. I'm very overwhelmed and very grateful. I've never seen this type of support, having lived in this town for more than 35 years. Election is coming. You guys take BIPOC folks for granted. When it comes to election, you come and to get our vote. Then after that, you do things that don't help us out. If you don't do the right thing tonight, we are going to remember what your action tonight when election comes. Please do the right thing. And if you think you're trying to cancel CSWG, it's not going to happen because we will not be quiet. We will keep calling out whatever we feel that is inappropriate in this town. Do the right thing and reject the town manager's budget. Let him go back and redo the whole thing. Perhaps you could approve a temporary 1 month budget, but he needs to go back and redo the whole thing. We pay taxes in this town. We live in this town, and we need to benefit from all the revenue that comes to this town. We have more than $1 million project on the front of the town hall, and then BIPOC folks are suffering. We were asking for safety. Do you guys not understand? We're human beings like you are. We breathe the same air that you breathe. We have the same blood as you do. Do you not have any feelings? Do you think this is a joke for our people? Or what? Please do the right thing tonight. We will remember during election, unless if you decide not to run. The demographic in this town is changing, and we will remember in November. Thank you.
Pat, thank you for your comments. There is one other public comment, and I'm going to end it with this. Angelica Castro, please enter the room, state your name and where you live.
Hello, I am Angelica Castro, and I live in District 5 on Glendale Road. I have raised 4 amazing children in this town. I have a 24, 22-year-old who went through Amherst Regional Schools, and I have a 16-year-old in the high school and a 14-year-old entering high school. And I am also an Amherst resident business owner, and also a member of the Amherst Area Chamber Equity Task Force. And I would like to support what everyone has been saying. Please listen to the Community Safety Working Group's recommendations. I fully support this phenomenal committee's work and vision for our town to be a place where everyone, including BIPOC community members, feel not only seen and heard, but also safe to be fully who they are without fearing unwarranted white gaze and police harassment and intimidation. We thank you ahead of time for your commitment to allowing BIPOC people to lead this charge, knowing that your action to support the CSWG bends the arc of the moral universe even more towards the kind of justice we all desire and deserve. We know that you will do the right thing. Thank you for listening to all of us. And I am so inspired and moved by the turnout that the CSWG and the community has garnered for the support, and to reject the budget and to fully fund the proposal, CSWG's proposal. Thank you for the work of CSWG. These folks are not only on the committee, but these are members of the committee who gather, who gather in their homes to support each other. They're committed to this town being inclusive of everyone. And so I know that you will listen, that you will really take some time to listen to your hearts, and to know that this is a time for change, that we all have a responsibility here to act accordingly to BIPOC folks. And when we think about reparations, to really sit with this decision and to see how your voice and privilege and platform can finally make some change in this town. Thank you.
Angelica, thank you for your comments. We're going to conclude public comment at this time. It is 8:15, and I think we need to give people a break for about 10 minutes. You may even want to go outside and take your mask off. Those of you that are on Zoom, as we all are, please make sure you're unmuted, but also put your video off. And then we'll be back at 8:25.